I'm going to read the preface and the afterward. So relax, enjoy, and if any questions crop up, pop them in the chat. And if not, that's cool too. Here we go. Can you relate? I love this quote from Abraham Maslow, a psychologist made popular in the 1950s when he termed the theory of a human motivation and, of course, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Many people joining us on the call will be familiar with that. And here's the quote: self-actualization, the desire to become more and more of what one is, to become everything that one is capable of becoming. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, years ago, after experiencing anxiety, depression, and a breakup or two, I knew there was just one person who could help me. Who was that person? Let's see in the chat. Who knows the answer to this? Who was that person? Who is that person? Just one person who could help me. Who do we think that might be? Yes, respect. Yes, absolutely. The Queen herself, Beyonce. Beyonce. So I did what any millennial would do. I booked a ticket to see her in concert. Took all my savings and I went to New York, that being the responsible thing to do, of course. So in New York, as I went to Beyonce's concert, tears started to fall. Yeah. Beyonce performed for 2 hours and I sobbed the entire time through to I'm a diva to I can see your halo. That's just my interpretation of Beyonce there. And so as I took the subway home afterwards in New York, I saw an exhausted, miserable face as the reflection. Not really the hope I'd had for a Beyonce concert, right? Yeah, really? I thought to myself, crying at a Beyonce concert? I realized there and then I was the problem. Do you ever feel, here's something to reflect on, do you ever feel that you've kind of outgrown parts of your life? Do you ever feel a bit meh? And you can't really kind of put your finger on why? Do you ever secretly wonder to yourself, you might be in a meeting or a Zoom meeting, or you might be at work or with a partner, with your dog, you might be thinking, surely there's more to life than this. Like, is this the whole, is this what the rest of my life's going to look like? Do you ever feel like that? If you ever feel simultaneously a bit overwhelmed and maybe a bit bored about the prospect of continuing with a life that doesn't truly reflect the person you've become or becoming, it's likely you might have outgrown an element of your life. Maybe you've outgrown an element of a relationship, a friendship. Maybe a job is kind of boring you. Your surroundings might all of a sudden kind of irritate you for no apparent reason. um, you might simply be going through the motions and feel kind of nothing at all. You might be languishing, as they said in the New York Times recently. In fact, thousands of people I've coached have shared those exact feelings with me, just as I've felt them myself. They explain they kind of feel trapped by a life they have signed up for, yes, but have also outgrown, and they kind of don't know how to get out. They tell me behind the scenes, I just feel like there has to be more out there. Surely there's more than this. So that feeling that I had experienced at that Beyonce concert, it's these feelings exemplified. It's how you feel before you decide to psychologically, emotionally, physically, mentally, professionally, or personally make a change. I wasn't breaking, although it felt like it. I was growing. I knew there had to be more, but I didn't know how to create more. I only got that far, right? The wonderful learning here is that growth is progression. Growth represents the ability for you to create or upgrade to a new reality. To do this, you have to get to know yourself, understand how you work, and then put a structure in place for enjoying life on your terms. Yeah. Thousands of people have felt just like you do, if you can relate to this feeling. I know I did. So, what happened after that Beyonce concert? Well, it won't be a surprise to you that I tried to create a framework to understand my feelings. I got out a notepad. I jotted down what I really wanted, not what I thought others wanted, but what I really wanted. I drew a line down the middle of the page, and on one side, I noted what gave me energy, what gave me life. And on the other page, I noted which environments, people, and jobs just kind of depleted my vibe or sucked my energy a little bit. And by doing so, I started to create a map of myself and how to be my best self, not a better self, not so much striving to be someone different, but rather someone I could feel reassured and proud of and excited by every day in a life that reflect that feeling too. So as I uncovered, discovered, unpacked, figured out what success looked like to me, I made small changes to my life. I started asking for what I needed. I started learning about a word called boundaries. I started saying no to things that I didn't want to do anymore. I started making decisions that reflected what I truly wanted. Pink suits weren't going to fall out of the sky. I had to go out and buy them. I started wanting, asking for, and expecting more of myself and eventually those around me. So, growth doesn't need to represent massive changes, it just needs to take you forward in some way, in your own way. Once I reframed outgrowing my life as a positive, funny things started happening, right? Jobs became more fulfilling, started staying in my bank account. Hmm. Relations deepened for the better. And instead of feeling like I was kind of fighting with myself, I feel like I became more myself. Once I looked at my life and career as something I should hope to outgrow and that wasn't a bad thing, I started enjoying the present more. I was less obsessed with finding something better, that feeling grass is greener. And I started to realize that learning was actually the only constant. And finding joy in that and continually evolving would take me to where I wanted to go. So you might be wondering, is there really more? Is there more than just, a Beyonce story for hope? Yes. And this book or the workbook or the guide or the video series or the audiobook will help you find it. So within these pages or within the audiobook or the workbook or the videos, I share my growth cycle for whenever you might feel stuck. So this will help you take safe, sensible steps at any stage of your life. It won't be easy. At times you might want to give up, fair enough. You might feel as though you're experiencing an identity shift at times, even an identity crisis. I know I did. But at its best, this feeling can be the start of something truly epic. Since applying these principles to my life, I turned the $300 in my bank account that included savings and spending into a into a business. I became a CEO, got married, did a TED talk in a pink suit during an identity crisis, and I also learned how to say no. I discovered how to get time back, and I made more time and scheduled time to spend time with those I love. I fell in love again. The only thing you can control about outgrowing your life is what you choose to do about it. And I'm here to share with you that we all have choices, some appealing, some easier than others, some harder than others, but we do all have choices. You do, everyone has power. And within this book, you have a toolkit to make changes that reflect who you've become or who you might be keen on becoming. I hope that this book shows you that when you have those itchy feelings of there has to be more than this, instead of feeling frustrated, you'll reach out for the tools in this book and acknowledge that yes, you've outgrown your current life. And yes, you have the option to change it or evolve it for the future. It's okay if you feel uncertain or even intimidated by the work you might choose to do by following this process. Millions of people have felt and do feel, trust me, because they're telling me all about it behind the scenes, the exact same way. For the record, yes, I still cry watching Beyonce, but now they are tears of pride for how far she and I have both become. So, why is it that we do want more? I believe the reason we actually run into problems as grown-ups is because we don't know where to start. No one sits us down and says, "Hear ye, for here is how you get everything you want in life." Wouldn't that be nice? When we do find out what it takes, it can come as quite a shock to realize the ownership that we need to take to get more out of life on our own terms, right? So at some point, we need to make the decision to take ownership and start making some decisions for ourselves. As when you have a problem, you also had the power to create a solution. What I've noticed that is really discussed in the pursuit of getting more out of life in the kind of self-help category, on which I'm a deep subscriber, is this idea of compromise. It is absolutely possible with choices and support and resources and time to have everything you want in life. Of course it is, as long as you're willing to say no to some things, as long as you're willing to make some hard choices, hard conversations. You have to make an effort after all, okay? And I think compromise, or the idea of it, particularly in the positivity space, has a bit of a bad rep, a bad reputation. But I think compromise is actually a very cool thing indeed. What we're willing to compromise on and what we're not reveals what's important to us, our values, our deal breakers, as Tina Fey might say, the way we do business and who we are. It reveals our priorities. If you don't do the work to compromise, A, I get it, but B, you cannot expect a different outcome to the one you're experiencing right now. You know, I've learned you can't grow and outsource the compromising, the heavy lifting, hard work. And I have tried to outsource many of this process personally. It takes time to unsubscribe from expectations and assumptions about what your life is supposed to look like. In some cases, it can take rewiring how we think entirely, can't it? But when we get clear on what we want and we develop the belief that we can do it, or at least figure it out while we figure out how to do it, and that you believe that we believe we deserve to feel good or fulfilled or ourselves, a pretty cool thing starts to happen. You start showing up for yourself. You start listening and hearing and acting on your needs. You start making the decisions that control your life. You become the protagonist in the movie that is your life. You start to see that there is so much more out there for you. Yes, you'll see the results of putting effort into what you want, and you'll stop expecting a return for making the minimum effort in life. If you also live a life of service to others in any capacity, growth is kind of a necessary part of the job description, I have learned. Holding yourself to your standard of success might look different to what those who love you and support you and care for you might expect, but it will mean that you never have to rely on somebody else to define what your future looks like. When it hasn't been about you for a long time, I get it can be kind of hard to see yourself as this person you're interested in becoming, right? But sometimes to figure out what you're capable of, to remember who you are, sometimes you have to take. Instead of thinking about what there is to lose, there has to be less. What if we started thinking about what we could gain? What if, instead of putting other people's expectations at first, we started to create our own definition of success and thereby our own definition of failure? What if, instead of letting fear take in the steering wheel, easy to do, harder to activate, we took one small step towards what suits us best? What all change starts with, I have learned and learning, is an unwavering conviction in the belief that, yeah, there is more to life. Like, to make a change, we need to firstly believe that, right? Instead of worrying what could go wrong, we need to start to think, what's the true cost of not taking action? You have your own permission slip already inside of you. You can give yourself permission. You don't need the world to catch up to you to start your cool side project. You don't need to wait for others to get it, to put up your hand for that cool job that seems little bit left field. You don't need to wait for your boss to fire you from a job that you hate to resign. It's okay if you feel lonely at times. I get that. Or if you experience pushback, or if it feels hard, I get it. What I'd like to say is plan for it. It's okay if you want to rethink some of your choices and press Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, undo afterwards, after being assertive with what you want. But you must persist. Push through the short-term pain to gain your long-term freedom. I promise you that it is worth it. Do it for you. Do it for those who love you, those who care about you. Maybe do it for those you'd love to show one day or show off to. Wink, wink. Finally, when I was in my 20s, I lived with my grandma. As I got ready to go out one evening, I asked her, "How do I look?" She grabbed me by the wrist, pulled me towards her, and said, "Don't waste a minute on me. Don't waste a moment." If I could talk to her now, I'd tell her, I did it, I think. I did it. I got burnt out a few times along the way, but I didn't give up on me. I never gave up on myself. It took me some time to figure out how to be a grown up in my own way, but I did it. I spent lots of time figuring it out, but no, I didn't waste a moment. Over to you. My final words are this: you've got this. Thank you.